It was like guaranteed that they were going to do that. They had been campaigning on repealing the Affordable Care Act for 10 years, so of course they were going to get that done. They all pledged to get it done, and yet they didn't, right? They didn't because we rose up as a country, all across the country. We made so much noise that in the end, two things happened. A handful of Republicans decided to vote against it, but then other Republicans just saw how much noise we were making. They kind of dampened the level of advocacy, and all of that together prevented what would have been the contraction of healthcare for 20 million Americans. And so I know that right now, it doesn't feel like we're being terribly successful outside of the courts in stopping the momentum of this attack on democracy. But I have just seen our ability before to do things that seemed impossible, that the conventional wisdom told us could not be done, momentum that seemed inexorable that all of a sudden wasn't if we speak out. And so 2 or 3 days ago, I just said, listen, if I'm coming back home this weekend, we have to have a demonstration of our might, of our unity. If they see they cannot crush us in the first few moments of this regime, of this administration, right, then we have a fighting chance. Then we are on a path to success. So this, to me, is that most important moment. So let me finish before we go to questions, just to tell you a little bit about what Dick and I are doing, and I'll speak for myself for now, and Dick will then speak for himself. And then I will just sort of preview what I think are the most important things that you all can do. And then we're going to put a couple microphones out there, and we'll take some questions. And again, when Dick shows up, we'll have him speak as well. Okay, so first, what are we doing in the Senate? So first of all, we are the minority party. Like, we don't run things in the House or the Senate. We don't have the White House, so we are the opposition party. We're the minority party, so we have a limit to what we can do. But I'll just tell you the decision that I have made. Well, this constitutional crisis is still pending. Until my Republican colleagues get serious about confronting this president's corruption, I am not voting for a single nominee. If you're signing up to destroy the Constitution of the United States, I don't want any part of your journey into the government, right? So, and I'm not going to be for expediting any of these nominees. I'm not going to allow us to proceed to ordinary, normal legislation until we figure out. We're going to use our power in the minority, and I can't speak for all of my colleagues, but I think you have seen over the course of the last week more and more Democrats stepping up and taking the decision that I have made. So I think we are gathering unity here. The second thing we're going to do is continue to try to do that hard, both public and private outreach to our Republican colleagues. Listen, I understand it looks like they have all decided on silence, and that may be what they decide permanently. But part of our job is to raise that public protest. But part of our job, as United States senators, is to put pressure on our Republican colleagues, at least a handful of them, to stand up and do the right thing. They go get a pass. This kind of loyalty to this kind of corruption, it is not something that we can normalize. The third thing I'm going to do is speak in very plain, very certain terms about what is happening. Some people say, well, we don't know what Elon Musk is doing inside the Treasury, so don't make an allegation unless you're totally certain about it. I'm not giving them the benefit of the doubt. They play us for suckers, right? They told us they told us early on, no, we're not closing USAID. We're just, we're just doing a review for a little while, right? And then they said, no, we're not closing USAID. We're just going to merge it in with the State Department. It's just a bureaucratic efficiency. The whole time they knew exactly what they were doing. They were shutting it down and they were lying to the American people about it. And so they have done nothing to deserve any benefit of the doubt. You have to read every single action of this administration and goes as an effort at fundamental corruption. So the third thing I'm going to do is be very plain about what I think the stakes are and what I think their motivations are. And if they want to prove me wrong, then prove me wrong. The fourth thing we are going to do, and right now this is perhaps the most important thing, is to support a lot of these heroic legal efforts that are underway to lawsuits almost every single hour, as you've seen. Most of them have been successful. I think there are mixed signals right now as to whether the administration is complying with those orders, but I will tell you now, I think the evidence is in most cases they have leaned towards compliance. USAID had an email to all their employees today based upon the lawsuit yesterday, halting all of the layoffs and the furloughs, putting back to work thousands of people. So we are going to support those legal efforts. A lot of the evidence that is necessary in order to support those efforts comes from United States senators and members of Congress, and so we will be supportive of those efforts. And then maybe the last thing for now that I'll mention is that we're obviously going to be deeply involved with this movement that is represented by many people here and all across the country. Because ultimately our success is just derivative of your ability to speak out and be impactful. And so just to make sure that we were able to get to the discussion as quickly as possible, I posted this morning on my Twitter feed. I'm still calling it Twitter. I'm still on there, because basically we can't let them tell us where we can communicate and where we can't. But I'll post it on all my other social media today. I put a pretty detailed list of what people can do, right? What people ask me, what can we do at this moment? And so I have a pretty detailed list of how people can be impactful, how people can get involved. This is not a political meeting, so you can look on that social media feed. But listen, it's not rocket science. It's not like you won't recognize a lot of the things that are on there. We've got to both organize politically, organize on the issues. If you've got a little bit of money, there are groups out there that are hurting right now, that have had aid cutoffs, that you can help. You can organize a small circle of your friends to do, I sort of called it in my post today, an action circle, where you get together 4 or 5 of your friends and you decide 3 or 4 things that you can do this month that will make a difference, and you hold each other accountable. There's a whole list of things that you can do, from getting involved in groups like Indivisible and Move On and the ACLU and your local Democratic Party, from assisting the groups that right now are hurting for funds. I will say though, and this to me has always been the bottom line, that there is, I think, a tendency to think these days, where so much of our communication and so many of our relationships are virtual, that it's enough to just kind of have an online protest presence. A lot of things have changed in American politics, but a lot of things haven't. What is still impactful, what is still most impactful, and I think my friends from the state legislature will agree, is showing up in person, right? Just showing up. There will be in-person protests and actions in Connecticut. There will be opportunities for people all across the country to show up to the town hall and public meetings of Republicans and Democrats. That is still the most forceful way that you can engage. We stopped the Affordable Care Act repeal because we showed up in person. I remember when I wrote the gun bill in 2022, 30 years of no action on gun violence. We passed that bill in part because every single day during the 30 days we were negotiating that bill, there were people in Washington D.C. showing up demanding action. So that still is your most important tool. But this is just worth fighting for. It is. I just, people ask me, and then we'll get to questions. People ask me, how are you doing? How are you doing? And no, I don't say not good. I say great. I say great. And I say great. I say great because I feel so freaking lucky to have this job. Like, I feel like this thing has always been fragile from the start. I mean, we decided to do something that no other civilization had ever done. We decided to build a multicultural democracy, right? No civilization in the history of the world has done those two things together for as long as we have. Decide that all of us get to make decisions for ourselves. Multi-religious, multi-ethnic, multi-racial, right? That has never ever happened. And it is fragile because, of course, there are always moments where you have this instinct to retreat to your tribe, where you want to believe arguments that the things that are bad in your life, well, it's somebody from another tribe that's to blame for that, right? There's a biology inside of us that responds to those arguments. And of course, democracy has become pretty efficient. And this version of democracy is not doing well for regular people. So when somebody comes along and says, just throw it out and give me power, that's attractive as well. So these threats, well, they're scary, come from an understandable place. And so I get up every day feeling just great about the chance that I get to be in the middle of protecting something that is pretty wonderful, pretty revolutionary, and worth keeping around.